Hi everyone. So to answer the two questions for this week, um, I'll start with interpersonal communication. So the biggest takeaway for me is how much people don't actually communicate to understand, and they more so communicate to respond, myself included. And that sounds simple, but it shows up everywhere. In arguments, group chats, random convos. Most of the time, people are already formulating their reply while the other person is still talking, so they're not actually listening. And the problem with that is that the actual meaning is missed behind what's said, and you're reacting to your interpretation, not what they're actually trying to say to you. And that's where misunderstandings are accumulated very fast. And the skill that stands out here is active listening, not in the nod your head and yeah, but more real active listening is where you're slowing yourself down mentally and actually like checking yourself and being like, am I trying to understand this person or just waiting to talk my side? And that shift really changes how conversation goes, and it forces you to sit with silence a bit longer, which is uncomfortable but very necessary if you actually want better communication. And if I use this in my everyday life, it's mostly in conflict situations or even normal conversations with friends. Instead of jumping in, I need to actually track what the other person is saying and then respond to that and not my assumption of what they meant. And then for the presentation side, one thing I didn't really think about before is how important structure and transitions are. I used to think if you had good content, you were fine, but presentations don't really work like that. And if your ideas aren't clearly connected, people will stop following you, even if your points are solid. Transitions are basically what keeps the audience inside your thought process and what you're thinking in that moment. So without them, it's like dropping people into separate islands of information with no bridge between them, and they get lost. And once they're lost, they're done listening and they check out. And that also ties into how much cognitive load you're putting on your audience. If you're constantly trying to figure out like, why are we talking about this now? They're not actually absorbing your message. So my takeaway is that like the connection matters, but organization is what, or the content matters, but organization is what like makes that content usable. And so if the audience has to work too hard to follow you, the message, it just fails no matter how good it is. And so overall, both of my sections I just pointed out kind of point to the same idea in different ways. And that communication isn't about what you mean, and it's about what actually lands with the other person and how it's coming across, because some people will assume what you mean. So you need those transitions to help them, and then also sit and actively listen.